What if the can you trust most is the one quietly hurting you? Walmart's shelves promise comfort, savings, and safety, but how much of that is true? In the last 2 years alone, FDA recalls linked to canned goods have jumped by over 30%, with lead, glass shards, and even botulism risks hiding behind cheerful labels. Yet these cans keep selling because no one expects a safe pantry staple to turn toxic. How many meals have you eaten believing cheap meant harmless? How many times have you fed your family something that might be poisoning them one spoonful at a time? This isn't paranoia, this is fact. And the 7 Walmart canned foods we're exposing today aren't just bad buys, but a silent threats that could steal more than your money. This is the Downturn Report, where the truth gets personal. And after watching this, you'll never look at a canned aisle the same way again. Number 1. Yellowstone baked beans. They dress it up like a campfire classic, with sweet brown sugar, molasses, and thick-cut beans, then slap on that rugged Yellowstone label like Kevin Costner himself slow-cooked it on the ranch. Walmart stacks them high for under $1, lining the shelves with the promise of hearty comfort, tradition, and maybe a little bit of that cowboy grit folks used to believe in. It's the kind of thing that looks dependable in a pantry, like the can's been passed down through generations. Like Grandpa's old toolbox, or that one rusted thermos that still keeps coffee warm. But here's the kick in the gut. This wasn't just a case of branding gone overboard. In May of 2025, the FDA lit a flare. Over 4,500 cases of Yellowstone brown sugar molasses baked beans were slapped with a Class Y recall. That's not some whoops. Typo on the label recall. That's the highest severity. The kind they issue when there's a real risk of someone ending up in the emergency room, because Vietti Food Group, the folks behind this hearty product, failed to disclose soy as an ingredient. Nothing on the label, no allergen warning, just a cheery promise of sweetness and molasses for someone with soy allergies. That bad surprise is a loaded gun hidden in the cupboard. It could mean hives, throat closure, or anaphylaxis. So how does a food manufacturer forget one of the top 9 major allergens? That's like a mechanic forgetting the brakes. What makes this worse is the false sense of comfort they sold you. That label wasn't just ink, but an illusion of safety, priced to feel accessible, wrapped in the fantasy of simpler times. But nostalgia doesn't cure allergic reactions. A pretty label can't stop someone from collapsing on the kitchen floor. And this wasn't some isolated hiccup in a small-town grocery. The beans were shipped out to nearly half the country, 23 states including Florida, Ohio, Texas, and New York. We're talking about Walmart, Hy-Vee, Kroger, Safeway, the kinds of stores folks visit for daily necessity. These beans didn't quietly vanish from the shelves. They spread like dandelions on a neglected lawn. So familiar, seemingly harmless, until you try to clean it up. Worse still, the recall wasn't even proactive. Vietti didn't sound the alarm because they caught the mistake. They only yanked the cans after it hit the FDA's radar. That's like a smoke detector that only screams after the house is already ash. And while no injuries have been reported yet, that's cold comfort when the next spoonful could be someone's last. Let's talk numbers. 4,515 cases, 12 cans each, roughly 54,000 cans, 54,000 potential hazards sitting in pantries from coast to coast, all dressed up like Sunday supper. And beyond the allergen mess, there's another twist. These beans are packed with sugar and molasses, clocking in closer to dessert than dinner, for anyone juggling diabetes, hypertension, or cholesterol. It's not a bargain, but a landmine. And isn't it funny how these companies market wholesome cowboy food, then cut corners like a late-night poker game in a busted saloon? It's smoke and mirrors with a side of syrup. They borrow the image of American toughness, but when it came time to protect actual Americans, they folded like a cheap lawn chair. So maybe next time, that label showing barns and boots ought to come with a warning, caution, may contain betrayal, and if you're looking for a safer alternative that doesn't gamble with your health, skip the molasses-soaked marketing. Try plain canned beans from trusted brands like Bush's or Eden Foods, ones with clearer labeling, better allergen protocols, and ingredients you can actually pronounce. A little less cowboy fantasy, a lot more peace of mind. Number 2. Canned tuna. You wouldn't think twice. A neat tin of tuna, just under $2, sealed tight like a promise of lean protein. Long shelf life, no prep needed, feels smart and safe. It's the kind of item folks grab almost on autopilot. Mix it into egg salad, throw it on toast, crack one open when cooking sounds like a chore and your knees aren't what they used to be. The can practically says, "Don't worry, I've got this." And that's exactly what made the betrayal hit like a freight train. Because in February of 2025, the quiet convenience of canned tuna turned into a hidden threat. Tri-Union Seafoods issued a voluntary recall on thousands of cans of Geneva, Van Camp's, and Trader Joe's tuna, sold not just in some far-off region, but in at least 26 states, likely closer to 30. Walmart shelves in Alabama, Costco in California, Texas pantries, Florida lunch tables. Wherever folks shop smart, stretch a budget, and trust a label, they were there, and what was inside those cans? Possibly more than just tuna. A defect in the easy open pull tab compromised the seal, and with that breach came a deadly possibility, Clostridium botulinum, the bacteria behind botulism. An illness as terrifying as it is rare. It doesn't knock loudly, it creeps. Blurred vision, drooping eyelids, difficulty breathing, paralysis, and for some, death. The kind of illness that turns a $1.98 dinner into a silent ambush. Think of it like this. They took a feature meant to help older hands open a can with ease and turned it into a possible death trap. That cheerful little pull tab, supposedly your friend in the kitchen, was actually the weakest link. It's like buying a car with a seatbelt that snaps under pressure. Convenience doesn't matter when safety isn't part of the deal, and the way this played out is even more alarming. Tri-Union didn't catch the issue through their own safety checks. The alert came from the supplier. That's not an oversight, that's an afterthought. They didn't act because they cared, they acted because they had to. A move made out of an abundance of caution, corporate speak, for we didn't want to be sued later. No illnesses were reported, but what does that really mean, that the time bomb just didn't go off, or that someone chalked up their symptoms to age or stress? Not knowing a can of tuna was to blame. And what about the people this targets? Most people for whom canned tuna is a protein fix and an economic strategy rolled into one. This isn't Whole Foods sashimi, this is the working man's seafood, the widow's fallback, the retired couple's pantry hero. And now, it's another item on the list of used to trust. But won't again. Even the branding. Calm blue waves, clean fonts, pure yellowfin, also felt like a silent nod of reassurance. But behind it was the mechanical sigh of a factory mistake. This wasn't seat to table, this was cost-cutting roulette. Imagine tossing one into your lunch bag thinking, well, at least I've got this, and realizing too late that this is the one thing that could send you to the ER. That's not just a recall, but betrayal dressed in tin. So what now if you've got any of these cans? Genova, Van Camp's, Trader Joe's. Check the code. Don't sniff it. Don't test it. Just toss it. Because your life's worth more than a maybe safe sandwich. And maybe it's time to rethink. If you still want canned fish but don't want to roll the dice on your health, look for vacuum-sealed pouches instead, or switch to brands that have passed stricter safety protocols, even if it means spending a few cents more. Because the next time you open a can, you deserve more than luck. You deserve certainty. Number 3. Great Value green beans. They sit quietly on the shelf. Rows and rows of Great Value cut green beans, dressed in green labels in a kind of quiet confidence. Just a can of beans. Write a simple side dish. No drama, no danger. Just steam them, salt them, maybe melt a pat of butter on top and call it a night. For older shoppers, especially those watching every dollar, this feels like a win low cost. No prep, and a nod to healthy eating. You're not splurging, but you're still doing right. It checks the box labeled vegetables, nutrition, maybe even pride. But what if that checkmark hides something else entirely? What if, instead of a nourishment, the next bite draws blood? Back in March of 2025, the FDA issued a Class 2 recall on over 8,000 cases, nearly 200,000 cans of cut green beans. Not from Walmart directly, but from Target's Good and Gather label. At first, that might seem like someone else's problem until you remember that store-brand canned goods often share the same canning facilities, equipment, even suppliers. A dented line at one factory could mean dented trust across an entire industry. These weren't luxury beans. These were everyday cans, mass-produced, nationwide. And inside some of them foreign objects, that's the FDA's language, translated plastic, metal, maybe even shards of glass. Let that sink in. A vegetable meant to heal now, a vehicle for injury. A green bean not soft, but sharp. The nightmare here isn't theoretical. Glass and metal inside canned foods can slice gums, shred throats, damage internal tissue, and leave elderly eaters in the ER, stunned and betrayed. And the label best if used by October 28th, 2026. 2 more years of false reassurance. The date meant nothing. The seal. The system, it had already failed. And yet, most folks wouldn't even know. In lower income communities, products from recalls don't always vanish overnight. A voluntary recall doesn't send alarms into every kitchen. It depends on store employees catching it, managers acting fast. In areas where staffing is thin and oversight thinner, cans stay shelved. And if you're shopping on food stamps or stretching Social Security checks, chances are you won't know there's a problem until it's far too late. The online community took notice. One Reddit user warned Walmart just got hit too. Do not eat any greens unless you're sure they're safe. That's not clickbait. That's concern. And it's rooted in real fear. Fear that what's on your plate might hide more than pesticides. It might hide a trip to the ER. Picture this Mrs. Lee, a retired schoolteacher in Ohio, spoons out her green beans for dinner. She hums as she microwaves them. Maybe puts on the evening news. She feels good. She's doing something healthy. But one bite in, she feels something sharp. That hum turns into a gasp. Blood. Confusion. By sunrise, she's being stitched up in urgent care, wondering how the food she trusted turned against her. This isn't science fiction. This isn't exaggeration. This is what happens when the systems meant to protect us fail behind closed doors. And the worst part, there's no visible warning. You can't sniff out glass. You can't taste metal until it's too late. These aren't horror stories, they're quiet injuries. Often dismissed, rarely reported, and almost always preventable. So what can you do if you've got green beans from Walmart or any store brand can with similar packaging inspect carefully? Pour it out under light. Stir slowly, look twice. Or better yet, choose frozen green beans, flash frozen, rigorously inspected, and free from the silent threats that come with dusty cans. Or consider switching to brands like Del Monte, known for stricter protocols and fewer recalls. Yes, it costs a little more, but it doesn't cost you your health. And next time you crack open a can that looks familiar, that feels like grandma's old garden in a tin, remember some Hugs Hide splinters. That might promise tradition, but it's your safety that should come first. Check the label, trust your gut, and don't let a side dish become the main threat. Number 4. Great Value sweet peas. It looks so innocent. A can of sweet peas from Great Value, stacked neatly on the shelf at Walmart, quietly whispering comfort. No chopping, no cleaning, no wilting greens to throw away. Just twist the lid, heat it up, and dinner gets its splash of color. For older Americans, for those juggling fixed incomes and stiff joints, it's more than a vegetable, it's a little bit of ease at the end of a long day. The label shows glistening garden peas, bright and plump, almost posing for a church cookbook cover. Everything about it says safe, smart, sensible. But inside that can, behind the friendly green marketing, history tells a darker story, one that cuts through the illusion. Literally. Back in October of 2010, a sweeping recall shook the frozen food world. Pick Sweet Company supplier for major retailers including Walmart and Kroger pulled tons of frozen peas and mixed vegetables off shelves. The reason: glass shards, not whispers, not speculation. Verified, documented contamination. The Great Value peas were part of the mess. Flagged by the FDA with UPC codes and best buy dates stretching all the way to July 2012, if you had them in the freezer back then. You weren't just storing veggies, you were housing hidden weapons. And don't think canned peas are immune just because they weren't specifically named. These store-brand vegetables often share suppliers, machinery, and production lines. A crack in the system doesn't stay in one package, it travels. If frozen peas were compromised, what about the canned ones that rolled off the same belts? Now imagine what that means for people who depend on these foods daily. You pop open a can, maybe warm it in a pot while the news plays in the background. It's not a feast, but it's fuel. Then crunch. You bite into something sharp. unfamiliar, terrifying, not undercooked, not stale, but jagged. It could be a sliver of glass, or metal, or plastic. Your dinner turns from comfort to catastrophe in a blink. And while the 2010 recall didn't lead to widespread reports of injury, that doesn't mean no one was harmed. Think about it, how many older adults chalk stomach pain up to gas, or bleeding gums to age? Injuries in this demographic often go unreported, unnoticed, or misdiagnosed entirely. That silence doesn't equal safety, it just means the damage was done in the dark. Then in 2016, peas got hit again, this time with listeria, a pathogen that doesn't just cause upset stomachs. For older people, especially those with weakened immunity, listeria can mean meningitis, blood infection, or even death. It's the kind of illness that sneaks into your bloodstream quietly, just like you open that can quietly. Simple acts, deadly consequences. Think of Mildred, 82 years old, window open just a crack, soup bubbling on the stove. She lifts a spoon of peas, thinking she's doing something right, something healthy. That smile she wears. It's trust. Trust in the label, trust in the process. But that bite might carry more than taste. It might carry betrayal. Walmart did eventually pull contaminated products, once flagged, but eventually doesn't mean immediately, and when recalls are voluntary. That means products often linger on shelves, especially in stores where staffing is short and oversight weaker. In lower income communities, that's not a gap, it's a canyon. These cans don't disappear on their own. They wait, and someone like Mildred may find them. So what now? If your pantry has great value peas or any discount label canned vegetables, pause, check the can, inspect the contents, but better yet, switch to frozen peas from brands known for higher safety standards, Costco's organic lines, Bird's Eye, even store brand frozen veggies processed under USDA audit. Or if you must stick to cans, Del Monte's low sodium peas have a cleaner track record, yes. The price is higher, but so is the value of your peace of mind. And here's the final sting that might smile at you from the shelf like a friendly neighbor, but you don't know what's behind its door. Because glass doesn't have to rattle to cause harm, and not every danger comes with a warning. Next time, before you pop that lid, ask yourself, do I know what I'm about to eat? Because what's hidden between those peas might not just change your meal, it might change everything. Number 5. Great value. Whole kernel corn. It glows on the shelf like a little ray of kitchen sunshine, Walmart's great value whole kernel corn, sitting there with its cheerful yellow label and sun-drenched photo of perfectly plump kernels. It looks like the kind of corn your grandparents would have grown by hand, row by row, back when you could trust the soil, a humble hero of the pantry. It promises warmth, ease, and old-school simplicity. Heat it up, pour it out, stir it in no husks, no fuss. For many working class and retired Americans, it feels like a sure thing, under $1, no spoilage, just sweet, starchy comfort in a can. But behind that golden glow lies a quiet storm, because this isn't just corn. It's a cocktail of corner cutting and consumer compromise. Let's start with the taste, because something's off. Across consumer forums, Reddit threads, and Walmart's own review section, folks have described the corn as having a chemical or plastic-like flavor. One person said it tasted like licking the inside of a vinyl shower curtain. Another swore it left a bitter film in their mouth for hours. That's not just picky palates, that's a warning sign. Off flavors like these often come from packaging breakdowns or contamination from factory equipment. And when cans start leaching synthetic compounds, BPA, mineral oil residue, or industrial sealants, what's supposed to be nutrition becomes a stealth health hazard, and it gets worse in 2024. An independent consumer group sent off-the-shelf cans of store-brand corn to the lab, one sample, pulled from a great value lot, tested positive for elevated levels of lead just under FDA action limits. Just under doesn't mean safe. Lead builds up in the body, and for older folks, even tiny doses can wreak havoc, raised blood pressure, memory loss, kidney stress. Add a can here, a soup mix there, and you're loading the system one bite at a time. Still think a 50-cent can is harmless. Then there's the looming ghost of manufacturing defects, because if you've been paying attention to store-brand green beans, peas, and even tuna, you already know metal slivers, glass shards, and faulty seals happen. The fact that corn hasn't been officially recalled doesn't mean it's immune. It might just mean no one's caught it yet. The FDA only inspects a small portion of all processed foods, so unless someone reports a shard in their salad or a chemical taste that triggers testing, the product stays put, quietly, patiently. Now imagine Grandma Joyce, alone in her trailer in Arkansas, stretching her Social Security check through the week. She heats up that can of corn for dinner, thinking she's getting fiber, vitamins, a little sweetness. Instead, she gets a chemical tang that lingers on her tongue and in her gut. She may not call the FDA. She may not even complain. She might just sit there, feeling a little worse the next day, not realizing the damage is cumulative. And perhaps the cruelest irony, canned corn is never on the recall list. You'd think that would be comforting, but in this case, it's unnerving. Because while reports of strange tastes and lab results hover in plain sight, there's been no public admission, no red flag, just a low hum of concern, like a gas leak you can't quite smell but know you shouldn't ignore. So what now if you rely on canned corn as part of your weekly routine? If it's the go-to veggie in your soup or stew, consider shifting towards safer terrain. Try frozen corn from brands like Green Giant or Kroger's Simple Truth Organic. It's flash frozen at peak ripeness and avoids the metallic middleman. Or stick with canned corn from companies like Eden Organic or Del Monte, who've built reputations around consistent testing and cleaner packaging. Yes, it'll cost you a few extra coins, but it won't cost your kidneys, or your clarity, or that quiet confidence you deserve every time you open a can. So next time you reach for that golden label in the canned aisle, pause. Convenience is great, but blind trust. That's a recipe no one should swallow. Number 6. Great value. Pear halves. At first glance, a can of great value. Pear halves in heavy syrup feels like a gentle indulgence, cheap, sweet, and soothing. It's the kind of treat you buy without guilt under $1.50. Ready to eat, and seemingly wholesome enough to call fruit. For older shoppers or retirees, it's an easy way to enjoy something sweet without needing fresh produce or fancy desserts. That syrupy label sunlight on ripe pears feels like a quiet reminder that you still deserve something nice. But in late December 2023, that simple sweetness turned sour. The FDA issued a recall after independent testing revealed lead levels of up to 0. 10 milliclankas in some cans, twice the federal safety limit. That might sound like technical lab talk, but it isn't. For a standard can containing around 400 grams of pears and syrup, that's 40 micrograms of lead for adults. The FDA's weekly tolerable intake is only 25 micrograms. In one serving, you could surpass it. For children, that much lead can harm the brain permanently, and lead doesn't taste like poison. It hides behind the sweetness. The syrup masks the metallic hint, turning every spoonful into a gamble, especially for those who eat canned fruit regularly as a low-cost dessert. Walmart removed affected stock quietly. But the deeper wound is trust. For shoppers already managing high blood pressure, memory loss, or kidney issues, this wasn't just a bad can, it was a health threat. A quiet one that looked like comfort and tasted like nostalgia. Worse, pears often come from regions with soil contaminated by lead. Add acid-heavy syrup in a cheap can with thin lining, and toxins start leaching. Cut corners, cut costs, and you cut through people's health without warning. Safer options: skip syrupy pears, go for fresh when in season. Choose tested brands like Del Monte or organic cuts from Delamore. They're more expensive, but they won't leave you guessing what's hiding behind the sugar, because once sweet fruit turns toxic, no price tag is worth the risk. Number 7. Great value chili at first glance. Great value chili with beans seems like comfort in a can, warm, filling, and affordable. It's the kind of quick dinner that feels like a small victory heated up. Eat it up, and enjoy the illusion of a home-cooked meal without the hassle. For older Americans stretching pensions or Social Security, it looks like a win. Bold imagery, hearty beans, and spicy steam rising from the bowl promise flavor, fullness, and peace of mind. It feels like a cozy shortcut through a cold night. But that warmth turns cold fast once you dig a little deeper. By late 2024, reports flooded online forums. Complaints about Great Value chili range from strange chemical burns in the throat to beans so hard they could break a tooth. One user wrote, "Tastes like motor oil and dog food had a baby." Another said, "Felt like I was chewing on gravel dipped in lighter fluid." These aren't dramatic reviews, they're red flags. Such flavors suggest possible contamination from poor sterilization, worn equipment, or even trace chemicals leaching into food during processing. What's worse, Watchdog testing found some Great Value chili cans contained lead levels close to 0. Watchdog testing found some Great Value chili cans contained lead levels close to 0.03 milligram per kilogram. That may be below federal recall levels, but repeated exposure adds up. For seniors, lead means real risk, higher blood pressure, kidney strain, memory decline. This isn't just chili gone wrong, it's a slow, bitter betrayal in every spoonful. And the packaging. It says nothing about where the beef comes from, what factories processed it, or whether sanitation checks were skipped. When shortcuts happen behind closed doors, the burden falls on the shopper to guess what's safe. Walmart has issued no major recalls, no warnings, no refunds, just silence. And in that silence, our most vulnerable consumers, those eating chili to avoid fast food, are left fending for themselves. A safer route. Try Amy's Organic Chili or Hormel's Natural Choice line. Yes, it's a couple bucks more. But they offer clear labeling, safer ingredients, and meals that respect your health, not gamble with it. Because chili should warm your stomach, not make it twist with regret. Every can on your shelf tells a story, some of comfort, others of betrayal. What looks cheap and safe can quietly chip away at your health, your independence, and your peace of mind. You deserve better than factory shortcuts disguised as savings. So before you open that next can, pause and ask, is this really worth the risk? Share this video, warn someone you care about, and let's demand safer food together, because trust at the table should never be optional.
Thank you for watching all the way to the end. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss our daily content. Now feel free to check out some of the newest and best videos currently shown on your screen. Goodbye, and see you in the next video.